Guys, Coinbase is firing employees for failing to use AI. Earlier this week, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong on a podcast basically announced that he had put out a mandate that all engineers leverage AI in their workflows, and those that didn't, they saw the door. And I think this is really timely story and highlights a coming storm, if you will, for all the men out there that refuse to use these tools. And guys, I get it. We're dudes. We're men. We're stubborn. We like doing things the way that we do them. We don't want to adapt. This is the way it's always been done. AI is not real. It's always an Indian. These are the types of comments I see. But the proof is in the pudding, guys. I mean, look, it's not just Coinbase. Don't just take Brian Armstrong's word for it. Just a couple days ago, I reported on a story where IgniteTech CEO Eric Vaughn dismissed almost 80% of his staff after they resisted a mandatory AI-focused initiative dubbed AI Mondays. He did this back in 2023. And he was kind of pushed on it again recently, said, I would 100% do it again. And today we're going to talk about a few examples of where this is happening. We're going to explain why it's happening, and we're going to talk about why you should adapt, what you can do as a man, because let's face it, if you get fired from your job because you refuse to use a new tool, what are you going to tell your wife? What are you going to tell your kids? What are you going to tell your next employer? Are you going to come on the internet? Are you going to come on my YouTube channel and whine about it? That's not what men do, guys. You want to stay relevant, respected, and financially free during this coming AI storm, you need to be riding the wave. You need to be surfing the wave, not swimming against the current. I just don't get the mentality, guys. I don't get the victim mentality. Listen, if you want to be those things, if you want to survive and thrive, this is definitely the time to like and subscribe to the channel. Okay? So let's talk about exactly what happened with Coinbase. So Coinbase purchased an enterprise account with GitHub Copilot and Cursor. And they mandated that all engineers use the tools. They gave them 1 week. Start using the tools. Start implementing them. At the end of the week, the CEO, Brian Armstrong, held a meeting for those that did not onboard and tried to understand, why didn't you use the tools? In some cases, people would say, I was traveling, this happened. He'd say, okay, you have another few days. In other cases, you're fired. If you don't have a good reason for not instituting the tools, you're fired. And again, the reality is that AI is no longer optional. This excuse of it writes bad code or it's not consistent, it's going to replace me, I can't use it, or I don't have time, those excuses don't fly anymore in this new world. Okay? That's, again, I talk about it like this, that attitude of not using AI is kind of like refusing to use a computer and saying, I like my typewriter. We don't use typewriters anymore, guys. We don't do that. You know what I'm saying? We're not riding horses around. We're driving cars. AI is the now. It's not the future. It is now. It is happening now. I'm using AI in almost all of my workflows in some extent, whether it's branding, copywriting, response, list building, engineering, report reading and analyzing. I'm using it everywhere. If you're not using these tools, you're basically a dinosaur. I mean, I'm vibe coding, I'm writing code, I'm building websites and software using AI. It's really remarkable once you get into it. And I know that, and by the way, for every IT guy that comes on here, onto the channel and says that it's trash or writes trash code, I can show you another IT guy that says, I'm just waiting for my head to be on the chopping block because this stuff is so amazing. This is a growing trend. This is not just Coinbase that's doing this. I already mentioned IgniteTech, but Microsoft has also dubbed AI not optional. And Microsoft's putting their money where their mouth is. I posted a video a few weeks ago, I'll post a link to it here, about AI firing tons of staff. And that's because they're substituting, and companies are doing this, they're substituting AI for previously human jobs, and they're firing people that don't adapt. McKinsey reports, and this is interesting, that while 70% of organizations invest AI, only 20% successfully implement. Are you in one of those organizations that successfully is implementing or not? Now get this, I reported on this in a video a couple days ago where $1 trillion in market cap was wiped out overnight. And it leads to an interesting story or an interesting study that I go into more detail on. But essentially, in this survey, 1 in 3 workers said they have actively sabotaged AI rollouts. I know this, now you know this. Please believe all the CEOs of these corporations know this too. They know that 33% of their employees are going to actively sabotage their rollouts. What does that mean? They either refuse to use the AI tools, they avoid training altogether, or get this. I think this is the most pernicious thing that employees are doing. They're intentionally generating low quality outputs to show that AI isn't real. It's not good. Oof. If that's the way that you show up to work, you should be fired. I'm sorry. If you show up to work with the attitude of, I don't need to learn anything new, I'm going to sabotage the efforts of the organization, you should be fired. I'm sorry. You don't belong there. You need to find a place where you do belong. The world is changing, guys. The world is changing. And I just think what Coinbase CEO did here is really proof. Because there's a couple things working here. Okay. And I already know what the comments are going to say, that the CEOs are greedy, these corporations are greedy. And that's true. I agree with that. Corporations want to make more money. I mean, in the companies that I'm working with and doing consulting with and implementing systems with, we're looking to make things more efficient. If people, we're putting out numbers, we're putting out data, we're putting out reports, and we're finding the weaknesses. We're finding the opportunities. What can be measured can be improved. And quite frankly, going to a team member and saying, well, it feels like you're not putting out the effort doesn't work. You got to say, hey, Jim is doing X number, you're doing Y number. Why is that? Well, let's look at the data. Oh, I see Jim made 3 times the amount of calls that you made. What's up with that? And it's about putting numbers together. So in any event, what I'm trying to say here is that companies are going all in on AI. They're investing billions of dollars. And this does kind of put pressure on them to forcefully make their teams adapt. Now, in a lot of cases, the adaptation is going to be sloppy. Either that's because the top-down training is crap. It's because they have no idea what they're doing. They're just saying, hey guys, we just spent $50 million on this AI program. You guys figure it out. That's on leadership. But I don't think now is a good time to be making excuses as to why you can't adapt, because then your head's on the chopping block, then your mortgage is on the chopping block, then your marriage is on the chopping block. You don't want that. We just need to adapt. And where there are challenges, there is opportunity. And I've said this a few times before. And I'm sorry for going on a rant, but Saturdays are kind of my rant days. During times of great challenges and great turmoil, there are insane opportunities. The opportunities that are coming are going to be unprecedented. And quite frankly, large corporations are going to have a very difficult time adapting. We just looked at it with that McKinsey survey. The vast majority of companies that are implementing AI are executing at a piss poor level. They're spending tens, hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars to implement AI, but they're not implementing it at a high level. And it's a massive problem for them. How can you play a part in solving that problem? Guys, that's where the financial freedom comes. That's where the respect, that's where the relevancy comes from. How can you help companies be successful with these tools? Because they are spending money there. This is not going to snap back and everyone's like, oh, it was a waste of time. It was a waste of money. Yeah, we don't need AI. That is not going to happen, guys. That's not going to happen. And you can feel free to disagree with me in the comments. If you leave a really good comment, I'll pin you. I mean, I would encourage you to sign up for my newsletter. That's the pinned comment right now. AIupdate.ai. It's my newsletter for men. But if you have a really good comment and you have a really good thought or data point or something that's interesting, I will replace my pinned newsletter comment with your comment. I will do it. I've done it in the past. I'll do it again. But what my point is that this stuff is not going away. If your thought is, well, I could just weather the storm, I could just fake it till I make it, I'm just going to produce crap outputs so that my organization doesn't adapt these tools, that's not what's going to happen. I'm telling you, that is not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is they're going to go to a conference, they're going to talk to their other CEO buddy who is crushing it with these tools, and his other CEO buddy is gonna say, well, this is how I did it. You should talk to this guy. He'll fix it. And then you're gonna be fired. We're entering a era of work that is not about completing a job. It's about solving a problem. That's my thesis. Okay. So let's talk about how you can adapt. Okay. And I'm saying this to help you. Again, there's a little bit of tough love today just because the comments get so hostile, and I feel like, I need to meet it with a little bit of force. And let's face it, that's how men talk. We don't, sit around drinking cups of tea with our pinky fingers up. No, we're men. We talk straight, right? We're not gossiping about people behind their back. We're straight to it. Okay. At least that's the way I am. So how do we adapt? The first off, and I think the biggest excuse that people are going to have is I don't have time. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is time block. That is when you go into your schedule before the week starts and you block out a set period of time to actually learning a tool, practicing with a tool. Okay. It typically is going to take you about 30 to 40 minutes to actually get into the groove. So you want to block at least 2 to 3 hours out to get into the tool. Okay. Time block it. Don't just write it on your to-do list for the week. Then it doesn't get done. You have to time block it. You have to set a specific amount of time during your week to getting it done. Okay. I'm not going to go into great detail, but my wife always says, I'm going to get on the Peloton this week. I'm like, what time are you going to do it? Oh, when I have time. The answer is that time never comes. You have to put it in your block. You have to block out. These are the times where I do the thing. So put AI into your time block for it. Otherwise, it won't happen. We're busy. We got kids. We got baseball practice. We got wives. We got church. We got all this stuff. Time block out a time for it, okay? Join forums. Join groups. Communicate with other guys in your industry that are using these tools, okay? And again, on my newsletter, AIupdate.ai, I'm breaking down a ton of new tools, ton of news. I would definitely encourage you to check out. Great prompts. Just trying to lay out my best stuff there, so check that out. The other thing that I would recommend is that you're actually listening to podcasts. So listening to a podcast like this is a good start, but you should definitely be listening to podcasts that are super technical in your niche, right? So when you get in your car, instead of popping on Rogan, which is entertainment, spend some time educating. I think that's important. There's podcasts I listen to that are not the most fun. They're not the most entertaining, but I realize they're helping me to grow. I realize they're helping me to improve. Okay. Learn the core AI productivity tools, ChatGPT, Copilot, Midjourney, Cloud. You should be familiar with all these kind of like core programs, but don't stop there. You want to learn domain specific tools that are very specific to the industry that you work in. So for example, in my industry, where I've been in the past, marketing, sales, media, we use Descript, we use Cast Magic for podcasting and copywriting. We use tools like CloseBot for sales and marketing automations and chat. So there's different tools out there that you can use. Learn the industry-specific tools in your industry, okay? And if you're not sure, again, refer back to previous advice, go into forums, talk to friends, talk to colleagues, take a course, do what you got to do. Be an early adopter, guys. Be an early adopter. Use the tools, find the weaknesses, find the strengths, find the opportunities. Okay, this is where the money's gonna be made. This is where the skills are gonna be made when you're ahead of the curve. I was talking to a guy the other day who's a faithful reader of the newsletter, and he said, hey, I'm going out for a new job. I don't know what to do. And when I kind of gave him a strategy to build out his own workflows with ChatGPT, and I gave him some prompts, he's like, what's ChatGPT? You don't want to be the guy that doesn't know what ChatGPT is, okay? Be a forward thinker. Because the reason I say this is because, if you're watching this channel, you're in like the top 5%, okay? Most people don't know what the hell is going on. They have no idea. But if you're watching a channel like this, you're in the top 5%. Stay there, okay? Stay there. Stay there. Stay in the know, guys. Stay in the know. And find these opportunities, because I mentioned this earlier. Companies are putting hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars on the line. And if you can find solutions, to problems, you can package those into software, you can package that into consulting, you can package that into all sorts of solutions, either whether that's within your organization or within your own business or within other organizations. Because the reality is, if you can, and I said this before, someone, this was a few weeks ago, left a comment about how he had developed a great AI program and got fired from his job. But do you know what happened next? He went to the next company and said, hey, look what I did for my last company. And they said, you're hired. Please come on board, please. Again, your problem, if you're able to solve problems, you will be in demand. That is my stance, okay? I hope you liked the video, guys. I hope this was informative. I hope you're not pissed off at me, but if you are, you can leave it in the comments. That's fine. And I would encourage you, check out yesterday's video. Yesterday we had I think a really fascinating study from University of Australia. I can't remember the exact school, but it's a study that showed the top skills that are being replaced and the top skills that won't be replaced. I thought it was a really fascinating story. You can check that out here, and I'll see you there. All right, boys, make it a great Saturday. Enjoy your family. I'll see you later. Peace.